What is up, guys? Welcome to another video, and today we're here for some more Need for Speed 2017 wishlist videos. And today we're going to talk about something which literally gets spammed in every single wishlist video I do. It doesn't matter if it's like a pink slips video, it doesn't matter if it was that video about Japan. Literally, the comments will somehow spiral into the topic of physics, and it will just end up being an absolute mess about the physics of Need for Speed 2017. So I kind of want to put my 2 cents in, what I thought of the physics of Need for Speed 2015. And what I want to see them like in Need for Speed 2017, because adjustments definitely do need to be made. It was a bit messy in Need for Speed 2015, and I feel like there was definitely some areas which can be improved on in Need for Speed 2017. So without further ado, let's go ahead and get straight into the topic. So physics is one of those areas which is kind of hard to discuss, because again, like, physics is something which you need to feel. You know, when we were watching Need for Speed 2015's build up, you know, you kind of got a sense for it, but you didn't really properly understand it till you played the game and actually like felt it. So I'm gonna try to explain it as best I can, but again, it's one of those things where you kind of need to feel it more so than actually kind of talk about it. So anyway, Need for Speed 2015, the main issue with like Need for Speed 2015's physics for me is it felt like there was, it felt like the road was a magnet and your car was another magnet, and it felt like it was stuck to the road with 2 magnets, and obviously that's not gonna do, like, that doesn't suit the game well, especially when you're going for jumps and shit. You would notice that the car just kind of goes straight into the ground and it smashes into the ground like a magnet. It's literally like if you were to throw a magnet onto the floor. That's how the cars would feel in Need for Speed 2015. You'd also notice that they were very heavy at some points, but at some other points they'd be very light, and it was very weird. They were either on one end of the spectrum of either being really light or really heavy, and it just felt like they were like magnets towards the floor. Another issue that I felt was like really apparent, and it wasn't really specifically more so for me, but for a lot of casual players, is that you had to tune perfectly in Need for Speed 2015 for the physics to work correctly. You kind of notice this with a lot of cars. You can't really use the handling slider, it just doesn't really work. There's obviously select cars where it does work. For example, the Huracan, if you just put the slider all the way to drift, it's going to drift amazingly well. But for a lot of casual players, you couldn't use the master slider. It wouldn't really work awfully well, and you'd notice that grip really was it was really underpowered, and you couldn't really use grip in any situation. You kind of had to have a car with more of a drift tendency, even if you were racing grip. And that was something that definitely needs to be addressed in the next game, and we're going to go on to that now. So I think the overall idea of drift-based tuning and grip-based tuning using a master slider was good, but I want to see it scrapped. I think the idea of that is I don't feel like it really suits the game. I feel like it would be better if we had more in-depth options, such as tire pressure, kind of how Forza has it, and springs and like spring rates and that kind of stuff, and I would be more lenient to having that element in the game. You'll find that casuals don't really want to use sliders and tune cars, period. You know, a lot of the people who complained about the physics in Need for Speed 2015 didn't even touch the slider, and you know, I mean, it's cool if it's there, but when you say tuning, it still kind of indicates something for the hardcore fan. You know, obviously in Need for 2015 you had the option to go in depth or use the master slider, but not everyone thought about it in that way, and they kind of just thought, oh, it's tuning, I'm going to leave that out. There's definitely ways you could involve a master slider as well as the kind of in-depth tire pressures and stuff, but I feel like it would make more sense if there was an actual tire pressure like gauge, and then you've got like your NOS duration and all that kind of stuff. I feel like that makes a lot more sense. In terms of how the cars handle themselves, I still don't want Ghost just to go back to a black box game and rip that handling physics straight from that. That's not what I want. You know, a lot of people say, oh, why don't they just bring back Most Wanted handling, or why don't they bring back Underground's handling? I feel like you could do that, but at the same time, it kind of takes away from the individuality that Ghost have. You know, I do want to see a kind of a step back from the Criterion-esque handling. You know, Need for Speed 2015 did have hints of that in the game, and you can understand why. You know, a lot of the developers are straight from Criterion, and that makes sense. But then you've got a lot of other developers who aren't, and I feel like having a hint of something else, something a bit new in the game would be really cool and really different, and because there definitely was that Criterion-esque handling in there, especially if you're like drifting, for example. If you were drifting with, say, the Huracan, you know, it was very similar. It was kind of very similar to how you would have been drifting in Rivals, for example, and you know, obviously it has its bonuses, it has its plus, but I much prefer having a car which feels like it's not on this pendulum effect. in Need for Speed 2015, it did kind of feel like the cars were on a pendulum, so you kind of had to balance it in between the pendulum, and then obviously you can come out in a drift and go somewhere else. But that caused a lot of problems. You know, a lot of the cars would drag out to the side after a drift at some points, and overall it just caused a few issues. Overall, I think it would be a much better idea if they kind of scrap that idea of the pendulum, and if they just make it so the car has more control within itself. For Need for Speed 2015, you couldn't really tell the difference between a car which was mid-engine rear-wheel drive, between a car which was four-wheel drive front engine. You know, there wasn't really a distinct change between those types of cars. For example, the Huracan realistically shouldn't be able to drift like that. I understand why it pendulums out, because it's small and mid-engine, so it swings out from where the engine is, and obviously it's four-wheel drive, which helps because obviously the traction and stuff. But I don't feel like that plays too much of a factor, because if you went to the Aventador, just because it's a bit longer and a bit heavier, it doesn't act anywhere similar to what a Huracan acts like. It's a lot more understeery, and it has its own characteristics, but it doesn't make sense in relation to what the car actually is. So maybe just having the cars feel more like they would in real life, in a sense. I don't want Need for Speed to be realistic. That's not what I want. But I feel like, you know, an Aventador and a Huracan should have similarities when they are on full drift, and I just don't see those similarities at the moment in the game. And obviously that's something I want to see in Need for Speed 2017. You know, a Huracan and an Aventador, realistically, an Aventador is just a big, it's just a bigger Huracan, basically. You know, length and horsepower and everything. It's just a better Huracan. So realistically, I should see some of the resemblance in the handling physics, but I couldn't really see that in Need for 2015. I think the one car which really did handle well though in that game, and I'm not sure if they did something special to that car, I'm not sure what they did, but the Hot Rod. The Hot Rod is a perfect grip car. That's how grip should handle in the next game. I'm not sure again if it did, because it felt like it handled differently compared to everything else. That was something which I had a much more control over. It obviously still had that pendulum effect, and that can still be minimized, but it just handled a hell of a lot differently, and I kind of preferred that for grip style racing. Obviously not drifting. Drifting should be completely different. You know, I feel like throttle control should be important for drifting and a few other things, but the Hot Rod itself, the Race Beck Customs Hot Rod, was a perfect example of how Need for Speed should do grip racing. Overall, I do think 2015 was a good start, but there definitely needs to be tweaks. Again, like I said, you know, the whole magnet thing where the car feels like it's like a magnet to the floor, and the whole pendulum thing, and you know, making the car just more in control, making it so the user has more control of the car is very important, and I think that's something they definitely need to focus on in the next game. But overall, again, still excited for the next game. I'm still excited to see what they're going to do. I have high faith in Ghost that they will nail the physics next time round, or it'll be a much better at least. And I'm pretty sure, you know, a lot of the issues we had in 2015 where the car drags out to the side and stuff will be solved, hopefully, in the next game. But anyway, I hope you guys enjoyed today's video. If you did, make sure to go ahead and hit the like, subscribe. If you agree with me, make sure to go ahead and tweet this the Need for Speed Twitter handle, or share it on social media and stuff, and hopefully we can go ahead and get their attention. But that's been it from me for today. I hope you guys enjoyed. If you did, make sure to go ahead and hit the like, subscribe. I will see you guys in the next one. You guys have been awesome. Stay safe and peace.